Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 2017 Hong Kong SAR Chief Executive Candidates Debate. I'm Wong Junmei of Cable TV and Jing Jun of TVB. Now, we have 7 news organizations, being the Commercial Radio, Now TV, Phoenix TV, Hong Kong TV News, and also TVB News together with us. There will be 3 sectors to the debate tonight: politics, economy, and people's livelihood. And there will be questions from the media as well as from the public, and also the candidates will be asking questions of each other, and there will also be a free debate at the end. Now, we have 137 members of the public with us today, and they are randomly picked by the DHK Lingnan University from their opinion poll centers. We will be picking questions from them, and each of the candidates will be given a same amount of time to answer the questions. And we also have an auditor firm, Norman Choi, here to oversee the process. Now, if the remaining time for a candidate's reply is not used, he cannot use it in the next session. The 3 candidates, please. The candidates, in terms of their order of speaking, their position, were picked by lots under the scrutiny of the auditor firm. Now, each of them will have 1 minute for their speaking on their position and platform. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Hong Kong, good evening to you. What Hong Kong needs now is unity. 3 candidates here, and even Regina's platform, the theme is unity of our society. Why is that? It is because the most urgent problem that we have is a division of our society. The government is finding it difficult to govern, and developments are stalemated. In order to solve these problems, first of all, we have to break through this stalemate and also to unify the Hong Kong people. What we need now is to rebuild a trusting society. In the next government, the most important thing that the CE will do is to unify society. And I believe I'm the only one among the 3 of us who can do so. Thank you. The next candidate, Ms. Carrie Lam. Greetings. Hong Kong needs to be unified, be trustful, and also be hopeful. And all these will have to be all of us walking on the same path. We have to connect. We connect is not about publicity, it's about a commitment. We have to be listening very carefully. We have to be determined to take action. In different posts, in serving the people, it is not because I'm so capable. It is because, as my husband says, it is because I can take a lot of burden and I work very hard, and very often I'm also very humble. In order to do something good for the people of Hong Kong, we want to solve the problems for the people of Hong Kong. And in the past few months of preparation for the election, I have gone through a lot and I've felt a lot. But I am even more determined than ever before, because all this is meaningful and useful, and we want to be connected with you. Mr. Wu Kwok-heng, 1 minute, please. The present government is all messed up. Now, the power that the secretary has and the leaders have, when they have the power, they do not use it, and when they don't have the power, they abuse it. For West Kowloon, some people want to take credit and therefore disregarded the law governing the development of West Kowloon, and therefore went ahead with things without consultation. And secondly, dismantling in in the new territories of illegal buildings, and when there were criticisms, right away retracted. And thirdly, in terms of universal pension scheme, it said that this is completely unfeasible. I am exactly opposed to such abuse of power in my entering into the CE election. Yes, the first sector is politics. The candidates will be answering the questions from the media, and the media's questions will be raised by the 7 news organizations, and there had been 6 hours of discussion among them to come up with the questions. First of all, Now TV. Mrs. Lam, concerning the independence for Hong Kong, what is a cause? What is a root cause for it? And how would you be handling it as a CE and also in terms of the young people? What is your response to that? There is no room whatsoever for independence of Hong Kong. One country, two systems. Hong Kong is a part of China. I think only a very, very small part of the Hong Kong people, for whatever reason, have come to harbor this. And I would want to strengthen the relationship between Hong Kong and China, or the mainland, and also to strengthen the understanding of the young people of our country. And I believe that this independence of Hong Kong, this thinking, will not be spreading in Hong Kong. You have about 20 seconds still, Mrs. Lam. Do you want to use it? Well, in recent times, there has been these thoughts and these independence of Hong Kong, these thoughts. It's worrying because we are a family, Hong Kong and the mainland, in terms of economy, culture, people. We are one country. So I think this is very important to know. Mr. Wu Kwok-hing, you have 20 seconds. Well, even though, Mrs. Lam, you say there is no market for independence of Hong Kong, but can the schools and universities discuss that? Yes, there is freedom of speech in Hong Kong. There can be discussion, but as teachers, they should also play their role. And that is, they have to tell the students, just exactly as I've said just now, this phenomenon and one country, two systems, and the integrity of our sovereignty, there are conflicts now, great conflicts, and one has to use this method in discussing with our students rather than to just provide open space and say anything's possible. I think that for our students, to allow them to understand better our country. I'm not saying everything goes, but can one go deeper into the discussion? You can only raise one question, please. 20 seconds, Mr. John Tsang, to follow up. Well, the country's leader had mentioned independence of Hong Kong, this problem. I agree that there is no future for this kind of thought, but it reflects that the leadership in Hong Kong is not good enough. That's why it's serviced this kind of thought. And a lot of the issues have been, well, your time's up. I do not know what John was referring to, the leadership of Hong Kong, whom exactly he's referring to. But as a leading official secretary of the Hong Kong government, we are all part of it. And of course, every issue we have to reflect as to why something came about, and this kind of reflection has to be shared among the people of Hong Kong. It is true in the past period of time, there had been some very deep issues surfacing in Hong Kong. Can it be that these issues had elicited certain extremist thoughts among certain Hong Kong people? We have to think deeply about it, but it is not going to be simplistic to say that it's because of a problem with the leadership of Hong Kong. Yes, Metro TV. Mr. Wu, now from national education to lead and water, it seems that the accountability system is not in place anymore. Now, how do you want to rebuild that system and also raise the confidence of the Hong Kong people? Well, I am for political reform, and to undergo political reform as soon as possible. Under Article 45 of the Basic Law, it says that there should be a progressive manner for the nomination committee should also be extended from 250,000 to 1 million. And also, 1/8 is the nomination from the nominating committee. That is a way forward. Now, if in 2020 there can be universal suffrage in coming up with the CE, then there will not be any representative problems. Because the CE by then will be elected by universal suffrage, much like the DHK members' election, and therefore there can be a responsible and accountable government.
I believe the accountability system is not an issue. The biggest problem is rather lies with the people. If we could pick people who have the credibility and the ability and who are supported by the public, then I'm sure that everything can go very more smoothly when they execute the duties. Of course, people are very important, but if we have a good system, even if you have not so capable persons on the team, when you have an accountability system, when the officials' term will only be 5 years at the longest, and under the accountability system, you can replace the officials. But if you don't have a good system, if you have a bad candidate, it's very difficult for you to replace the officials concerned. So the system of accountability is very important. Mrs. Carrie Lam, I'm still inclined to think that the person is more important. I don't think that people expect that when you have a very incapable accountable officer, he should stick on with his post for 5 years before he leaves. So, Mr. Wu, could you tell us how would you select the officials under the accountability system? Well, I think we should follow the electoral system. And there should be, sufficient nominations, and then we should elect the CE on a universal suffrage basis. Of course, the candidate is important. People are very important. It would depend on which candidate would have the integrity, because you can cheat with your political platform, but the person himself cannot really cheat people so easily. So the system is important. We must proceed with political reform. We should not sit still for another 5 years and not do anything. Next, Wong Ming-Hei from DHK. The question is for Mr. John Zhang. Mr. Zhang, under the one country, two system, it's been implemented for the last 19 years. What is the biggest, contradiction in your opinion? The central government wants to ensure that the one country system would not, lose its characteristics. Well, one country system is a system which best suits Hong Kong. If under the basic law we could abide by the requirements of the basic law, I'm sure one country, two systems can ensure that we can have a very smooth administration or governance. At the same time, Hong Kong can also make a big contribution to our motherland. So this is very important. The relationship between Hong Kong and our country must be an interactive relationship, and both sides should be able to benefit or contribute to the other. So we must continue to uphold the basic law and exercise the powers vested on us according by the basic law and implement the system. I believe that we would be able to continue to implement what we need to do. Ms. Wong asked about what is the most important issue under the one country, two system framework. I believe the independence of the judiciary is the most important. Any attack on our judicial independence will be detrimental to our one country, two system framework. So I'd like to ask this question to Mr. John Zhang, although he was not in charge of judicial affairs. Of course, the independence of the judiciary is the most important. Recently, we've seen many incidents. Many people have made certain, unrespectful remarks about the judgment made by the judges. And I'm really very sad to hear that. We have to rely on our independent judiciary so that Hong Kong can have a system which is different from other jurisdictions. I think we need to uphold that. I think we need to stubbornly, implement this. So the judiciary, therefore, is the most important segment. Mr. Kwok Hing, of course, the independence of the judiciary is very important. Rule of law is equally important. Mr. Secretary, Mr. Zhang, may I ask you this? Now, if you have the mainland officials, based in Hong Kong, interfering with Hong Kong affairs, how would you deal with that? Under Article 22 of the Basic Law, it is clearly stipulated that for the three separate organizations, mainland organizations based in Hong Kong, their functions are clearly stipulated. The power to govern rests with the Hong Kong government. If we do not give up our rights, we don't let people to interfere with what we do, I don't believe any organization can interfere with or influence our governance. Thank you. Next, is now for the members of the public to ask questions on the subject of politics. Before we started, we already had collected some questions. For this session, we will select 6 members of the public to put the questions to the 3 candidates. Each of you have 15 minutes to put your 15 seconds to put your questions. And the candidates have, can answer the question. C06, B17, A10, B37, C07, A06. I'd like to call upon the first member of the public, C06, and the question is for Mrs. Lam. Originally, I wanted to put this question to Mr. John Zhang, but I found that recently when he answered questions, his answers were really, not very good. So my question now is for Mrs. Lam. Now, Mrs. Lam, the Pan Democratic camp is not giving any of the votes to you. In future, how are you going to vote to win the votes from the Pan Democratic camp? Thank you. I believe nomination is one thing, voting is something else, and so is governance. This time, the 300-odd members of the electoral committee from the Pan Democratic camp have chosen to resort to their method, and as a result of which I am not getting any of the nominations. But I hope that at the time of the voting, I will get some of the votes from the Pan Dem group. But anyway, when I became the SC, I will certainly work hard to unite all the political parties to work together to build Hong Kong. Using electoral as an example, I will set up, a platform for communication, and I will communicate regularly with the different political parties so that we can really do something, concrete and substantive for Hong Kong. Next. Again, the question is for Mrs. Lam. Hi, Mrs. Lam. I'd like to ask whether you trust the people of Hong Kong. If you were elected, and if the mainstream view is very different from yours, how would you deal with that? Thank you. I trust the people of Hong Kong 100%. So if something happened in Hong Kong, if the mainstream view is not the same as mine, I certainly would accept the view of the Hong Kong people. If the mainstream view of the Hong Kong people is such that I can no longer serve as a CE, I shall resign. Because I'm contesting the CE election this time, honestly, the decision was made rather rashly, and I didn't have too much time to prepare. I just want to have the opportunity to serve the people for another 5 years. A10. The question is for Mr. Wu Kok Heng. Mr. Chen Chi-wan became the hot topic in the news today. So can he be our chief executive, Chen Chi-wan? I've just heard the news that Chen Chi-wan won the case in the Court of Final Appeal. He's proven innocent. So I respect the decision of the court, especially the ruling of our CFA. I don't know why this gentleman is saying that he could become our CE. If he came forward and run for the election, then it might be possible, but I dare not comment on this because I don't know about his caliber. To become the CE of Hong Kong, the candidate must be upright, he must, put Hong Kong back on the right track again, and that is very important. I hope that I will be able to shoulder that responsibility. Next, B37. Again, the question is for Mr. Wu. Mr. Wu, it's very likely that you will be fighting with Mr. John Zhang for votes, and that would increase the chances of Mrs. Lam winning the election. Is that against the what you said when you declare your candidacy? So when are you going to decide to withdraw from the election? When I contested the election, I did not make a pledge that I would withdraw or not contest the election. Anybody saying that I would, withdraw from the election, please check all the recordings. I've never said that. I only asked the question, that is, if I have to help other people, why shouldn't other people help me with my election instead? So that's the question I asked. So do not have any misunderstanding about that. Anyone who contests the election would want to win. Nobody wants to contest an election just for the fun of it. So I hope you will be careful. I've never said that I would withdraw from the election or assist any other candidate to win. C07, this is a question of Mr. John Zhang. Mr. Zhang, how can you apply your governance philosophy so that we can restore trust, unity, and hope? What will you do to really make sure that this is done? Well, I believe the most important step is that we elect a CE that everyone can support. This is important. We don't have universal suffrage yet, but I think we can take a look at many of the findings of the opinion poll, and you can see which candidate is most supported by the people of Hong Kong. So if we could elect someone which everyone would support to become our CE, this is the important first step. Secondly, I will bring in a team who will have the credibility and the caliber to serve our people. And this will result in greater harmony in our society. And more importantly, we will not be biased at all.
A06, another question for Mr. Zhang. Now, what the Li Tengfei Hong Kong version, that is, before the person comes to the post, he promises everything, but when he's come to the post, he does not. He opposes society. Well, Hong Kong and the central government's relationship is very important. With the appointment of the chief executive, the central government has a real authority over the appointment. So a lot of our future work will have to be done vis-à-vis the central government, especially in the area of economy. There's rapid development in the mainland, and the development in China, the overall development will be the background and the engine for Hong Kong's economic growth. As a financial secretary, I had used a lot of time to work out a very good working relationship with the finance minister and personnel in the central government. Very good. Each candidate will now be given 2 minutes to ask questions of each other in the area of politics, and please specify whom you want to ask the question of. Now, please, Mr. Wu Kwok-hing, 2 minutes. Mrs. Lam, for West Kowloon, why have you not consulted the public, made the decision on your own to bring the Palace Museum to Hong Kong, to West Kowloon? This is not abiding with the law, not abiding with the rights of the Hong Kong people in being consulted. Mr. Wu, I have already emphasized that the core value of Hong Kong is to be law-abiding. In the West Kowloon Authority, it is clearly written in the ordinance. I have gone through it in detail together with my colleagues. Hong Kong to have a palace museum to be able to display the culture of China. Of course, that's good for Hong Kong, but you cannot not consult the Hong Kong people and make your own decision on behalf of the Hong Kong people for something that important and big. Mr. Wu, this is a unique occasion. In my decades of service at the Hong Kong government, I've not come across something so unique. I had to keep it confidential. Otherwise, this project cannot be brought to Hong Kong. In fact, we've just done a comprehensive consultation. Oh, it is a false consultation after the event. Well, I'm sure everybody would want to see the Palace Museum brought to Hong Kong. That is another issue. If it's so good, why did you not consult the Hong Kong people? It's much like a lot of policies. John will be able to tell you as well for a lot of the tax policy reforms. While we are preparing and working on it, we do not make it public. As I have mentioned just now, you are, Mr. Wu, you're Judge Wu. You know the law. Yes, I know the law. Right, time's up, Mr. John Tsang. Excuse me, another question for Carrie Lam. Now, you have said many times that you will not be running for CE, but you have gone back on your word. Please keep quiet, the audience. And when CY said that he will not be running for a second term, you came up to say that you would be running. You actually resemble CY in many, many ways. Can you please let me finish? And therefore, a lot of people say that you're actually CY 2.0. Now, my question is, have you thought about why people call you that? Because CY 1.0 is not running, so they need someone to take his place. It's for people who want to vent. They want an image to vent against. But John, I also have questions concerning running for election addressed to you. Now, November last year, in the media, it said that you would want to run for election, and also a certain lady will become your head of the election team, and you've been going up to Beijing to see ministers. Can you stop her? Can you stop her? Because this is also irrelevant, what she's saying. No one wants to have a nickname, especially if it's a nickname you don't like. Should her microphone be switched off, please? Yes, I have a nickname as well, a rather dear one. I don't mind that nickname. But in society, people are not so worried that you are CY 2.0. What they're most worried about is that if you were to be elected, the Hong Kong society will become divided 2.0. What's your response, please? Well, time's up. There's no time for Mrs. Lam to reply. Mrs. Lam, 2 minutes. Well, using my home court time, I would want to thank those friends who have helped me come up with this manifesto. And I would want to ask a question of the two gentlemen concerning the formulation of their manifesto. We want to be solving some of the very real problems of the people of Hong Kong, but having read the manifestos, I feel that Mr. Wu and Mr. Zhang's manifestos are rather empty. And I'm sure they have heard that for young doctors under HA, they are worried that they do not have a lot of training opportunities because of a lack of budget or the allocation of resources, making it that way. And there are also a lack of pediatric doctors in the new pediatric hospital. And I would like to put this question to Mr. Zhang. Have you been meeting with these medical doctors? I do not, especially the young medical doctors, I do not see any response in your manifesto. I'm so happy you're talking about the formulation of the platform and manifesto because it is very hard work. I remember when I announced that I'd be running, I have been working very closely with. Can you directly answer the question on health and medicine? If you allow me to answer this question, you will hear this is my home court, isn't it? Well, if that is the case, I don't need to be responding if it's your home court. Is that what you want? Please keep quiet. Should I continue? This is Ms. Lam's home court. Because in recent years, in terms of budgets for the hospitals, it's been too small, it's been too stringent. But of course, this is a politics session, but politics is still about livelihood. And the CE will have to pay attention to health and medicine.